Here in the book of James, we've seen several powerful illustrations about our tongue, the little member within our mouth that can boast great things. How have your words been? We need to make sure that we understand that our tongue needs to be bridled like a horse, a very powerful animal that needs to be steered. Our tongue needs to be viewed as a rudder that if we're not careful, it can guide us to places we don't need to be. Our tongue can be like a fire that scorches the lives of others around us. Our tongue is like a wild animal that no man can tame, and as James said, is full of deadly poison. Today I want us to see that also we have to beware of the tongue because it can become hypocritical. We don't need to be hypocritical in the things that we say with our tongue. James chapter number 3 and verse number 9 says, "Therewith bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not be so. Doth a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter? Can a fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries, and a vine figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh." Here's the illustration he uses of springs and fountains and trees and vines. What the tree is, it is going to bear fruit of. And it should not, and it would be wrong if you went to an apple tree expecting to find apples and you found oranges there. That wouldn't make sense. That's not right. That's not how it's supposed to be. And would to God that when people approach us as believers, that they wouldn't find and hear things coming from our mouths that go against the very nature of who God has made us to be. My friend, when you got saved, God made you a new Christian. He made you a new creature, rather. And He made all things new. That means the way that we think should be different. That means the way that we act is in a new way. And the things that we say ought not be like how we used to speak before we met Christ. It is supposed to be different. And He gives this great illustration of these things, but He also gives a very straightforward statement when He says, how can we bless the Father with this mouth and also the next day curse man with this mouth? It doesn't make sense to praise God on Sunday and then to curse men or curse man on Monday. And he says the reason for this is if you're cursing men, you're cursing that which is created after the similitude or the resemblance of God. Back in Genesis chapter number 9, after Noah stepped off the ark, God gave Noah a very important commandment that he was not supposed to shed the blood of men. And He says, surely your blood of your lives will I require if you shed blood. At the hand of every beast I required it. If an animal sheds a man's blood, then that animal's blood needs to be shed because you're not supposed to shed the blood of men. And He says here in verse number 6, whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made He man. The reason we are not supposed to murder is because that man was made in the image of God. And God commands us that if somebody does do that, that their blood should be shed because they disrespected the image of God. And as it said in the Old Testament, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. All these things are true. All right, we don't really struggle with that in our days of shedding men's blood per se, but we do struggle with cursing other men. We've got to be careful what we say about other people. The people that we curse are made after the image of God, and that holds some weight with us. And we ought to be careful about what we say. You know, if you feel like you have to curse a man, maybe you better pray for that person before you do that. Maybe you better talk to God about that first. We can't be a person that says, oh, I love God and that I hate people. It doesn't go together. That's like a spring of fresh water that brings forth bitter water. That's like an olive tree that's bringing forth apples. We got to be so careful about what we say. Don't let your mouth be hypocritical. Beware of the tongue.